Two young sisters were playing in the grass during a family picnic at their North Carolina vacation home when their parents turned away for just a few minutes to load the car. By the time they returned, the girls had vanished, and every lead went cold for over a decade. But 11 years later, a blogger filming his treasure hunt noticed a strange pattern on his metal detector near an oak tree. And what he dug up would bring answers no one expected. The phone rang just as June Morrison was settling down with her morning coffee. The number on the display was unfamiliar, but something about the early hour made her stomach tighten with an inexplicable dread. She answered on the third ring. "Mrs. Morrison, this is Detective Harrison with the Forest County Police Department. I need you to come to the station immediately. We found something concerning your daughter's case." The coffee mug slipped from June's fingers, shattering on the kitchen floor. 14 years. It had been 14 years since anyone had called about Emma and Sophie. Her hands trembled as she gripped the phone tighter. What did you find?" Her voice came out as barely a whisper. "Ma'am, I'd prefer to discuss this in person. Can you come to the station? It's urgent." June's husband, Marcus, appeared in the doorway, alarmed by the crash. She met his eyes, and he immediately understood. After all these years, they could still communicate volumes without words. When it came to their daughters, during the drive to the police station, June's mind drifted back to that horrific day 14 years ago. July had been unseasonably warm, perfect for their annual trip to the vacation home. The girls had been so excited, Emma, only 4, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit, and Sophie, 7, already trying to act grown-up, carefully packing her special thermos bottle, the stainless steel one with butterfly stickers she decorated herself. The picnic had been idyllic at first. They'd spread their blanket in the usual spot, close enough to the forest edge that the tall pines provided shade, but far enough that they could watch the girls play in the open grass. Sophie had been teaching Emma how to do cartwheels, both of them giggling as Emma's chubby legs went every direction but up. "I'll start cleaning up," June had told Marcus, beginning to gather the paper plates and leftover sandwiches. He'd joined her, both of them making trips back to the car with the cooler and picnic supplies. It couldn't have been more than 10 minutes, 15 at most. When they'd returned for the blanket, the girls were gone. At first, they'd called out casually, "Sophie, Emma, time to go." But as the silence stretched on, casual calling became frantic screaming. They'd searched the immediate area, then called the police. Search teams combed the forest for weeks. Volunteers from 3 counties joined the effort. But it was as if the earth had simply swallowed their daughters whole. Detective Harrison was waiting for them in the station lobby, his face grave. He was younger than the detective who'd handled the original case, but his eyes held the same mixture of professional distance and genuine sympathy. "Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, please come with me." He led them to a small conference room where another detective waited. On the table was an evidence box, sealed and labeled. June's legs felt weak as she sank into a chair. 3 days ago, a blogger named Mike Garrett was in the forest with his metal detector, Detective Harrison began. He runs a treasure hunting channel online, posts videos of his finds. He was searching near the old-growth section when his detector went crazy near a large oak tree. The detective pulled out a photograph showing a metal detector's digital display. The red numbers showed 99, an extremely high reading. He thought he'd found something valuable, maybe old coins or relics. The signal was so strong he spent hours digging carefully. What he found. Harrison paused, clearly struggling with how to continue. He found human remains and this. With gloved hands, the detective lifted a clear evidence bag from the box. Inside was a stainless steel thermos bottle, tarnished and dirty, but unmistakable. June could still see the remnants of butterfly stickers clinging to its surface. "No," June whispered, reaching for the bag with shaking hands. That's Sophie's thermos. She had it at the picnic. She was so proud of it. Wouldn't let Emma drink from it, because she said Emma would make it sticky. Her voice broke entirely. Marcus gripped her shoulders as Detective Harrison continued gently. There were also fabric remnants consistent with clothing. Green gingham pattern. Sophie's favorite dress, the one she'd insisted on wearing to the picnic. Even though June had suggested shorts might be better for playing, Sophie had loved how the skirt swirled when she spun. We were able to recover enough remains for identification. The dental records confirm it, Sophie. The room spun. June heard herself sobbing from very far away, felt Marcus' arms around her, but couldn't quite connect to the sensation. Her 7-year-old daughter, her bright, bossy, beautiful Sophie, had been lying in the cold ground just miles from where they'd searched. All these years of hoping, of imagining elaborate scenarios where both girls had been taken but kept alive, cared for by someone who just wanted children of their own. "This changes everything," Detective Harrison said softly. "This is no longer a missing persons case. It's a homicide investigation. We're reopening everything, re-examining every lead, every person who was interviewed 14 years ago." "What about Emma?" Marcus asked, his voice rough. "Was there any sign of Emma?" "Not at this location, but we're expanding the search immediately. Every available resource is being deployed. We're going to comb every inch of that forest. If Emma is—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "If there's anything to find, we'll find it." "You think she could still be alive?" June said, reading between the lines. "If someone took them and only Sophie is buried there, then maybe Emma." "We can't rule anything out at this point," Detective Harrison said. "That's why we need your help. We need you to stay in the area while we conduct the search. Can you do that? I know you live 3 hours away now, but the vacation home," Marcus interrupted. "We still own it. We couldn't bear to sell it, but we haven't been back since. We can stay there." Detective Harrison nodded. "That would be helpful. We'll need to go over everything again. Everyone who was there that day, anyone who knew your routine, anyone who showed unusual interest in the girls or the case. I know you've been through this before, but with this new evidence, something might click that didn't seem significant." Before, June stared at the evidence bag containing Sophie's thermos. Such a small thing to have triggered such a massive discovery. She thought of Mike Garrett, the treasure hunter, expecting to find old coins or jewelry, instead uncovering every parent's worst nightmare. The metal detector reading 99, searching for treasure and finding tragedy instead. "When can we see her?" June asked quietly. "Sophie, when can we—" "The medical examiner still needs to complete the full examination. But yes, once that's done, we can arrange for you to say goodbye properly." 14 years of not knowing had ended with the worst possible answer for Sophie. But as June gripped Marcus's hand, she felt a tiny spark of something she'd thought was lost forever: hope. If someone had kept Emma, if there was even the smallest chance her baby girl was still alive somewhere, they had to try. "We'll go to the house today," June said, standing on unsteady legs. "And Detective Harrison, thank you for calling us yourself, for handling this with such care." The detective nodded. "We're going to find out what happened to your daughters, Mrs. Morrison. I promise you that." The gravel driveway crunched under their tires as Marcus turned onto the familiar path. June's breath caught in her throat as the vacation home came into view through the pine trees. It looked exactly the same, the weathered wood siding, the wraparound porch where the girls used to play board games on rainy days, the tire swing still hanging from the old maple tree, its rope now frayed and gray with age. Marcus cut the engine, and they sat in silence for a moment. Neither wanted to be the first to open the door, to break the seal on this time capsule of their former life. "We don't have to do this," Marcus said quietly. "We could stay at a hotel in town." June shook her head. "The detective said they might need us at any moment. And if Emma's out there somewhere, I want to be close." The front door stuck slightly, swollen with years of neglect. When it finally gave way, the musty air rushed out to meet them. Dust motes danced in the afternoon sunlight, streaming through the windows. Everything was exactly as they'd left it on that last frantic night 14 years ago, when they'd finally given up waiting by the phone and returned to the city, unable to bear another moment in the house that echoed with their daughter's absence. June moved through the rooms like a ghost. The living room still held the family photos on the mantel, their last Christmas together. Sophie missing her 2 front teeth, and Emma covered in cookie frosting. A beach vacation from the year before. Both girls building sandcastles with intense concentration. In the kitchen, her heart seized. Emma's drawings were still pinned to the refrigerator with alphabet. Magnet's crude crayon figures labeled Mama and Dada and Sophie. In Emma's 4-year-old handwriting, a drawing of their house with disproportionately large flowers and a smiling sun. June traced the waxy lines with trembling fingers. The search teams are gathering at the ranger station. Marcus said gently, touching her shoulder. We should check in, let them know we're here. The ranger station sat at the forest's edge, now transformed into a command center. Police vehicles, volunteer cars, and news vans crowded the usually empty parking lot. Yellow tape sectioned off areas, and uniformed officers directed the organized chaos. That's when June saw him. Park Ranger Mitchell stood near a folding table covered in maps, gesturing to a group of volunteers. His hair was grayer now, his uniform stretched tighter across his middle, but his bearing was unmistakable, the same overly helpful demeanor, the same way of inserting himself at the center of everything. June's skin prickled with the same unease she'd felt 14 years ago. Mitchell had been the ranger on duty that day, the last official to see her girls alive when he'd done his rounds through the picnic area. During the initial search, he'd been everywhere coordinating volunteers, suggesting search patterns, offering theories. Too involved, she'd thought then. Too interested in every detail of their family routine, asking questions that seemed to go beyond professional duty. She watched him now as he directed volunteers through the forest grid patterns. His finger traced across the map, and she noticed something that made her stomach tighten. He was steering teams away from the northern section, just as he had during the original search. That area is too dangerous, she heard him telling a group of eager volunteers. Unstable ground, old mining shafts. We'll keep to the established trails for now, but June remembered that area. They'd hiked there with the girls many times. There were no mining shafts, no unstable ground, just dense forest and a few rocky outcroppings that Sophie had loved to climb. Detective Harrison. June approached the detective, who was conferring with other officers. Can I speak with you for a moment? She pulled him aside, glancing back to make sure Mitchell couldn't overhear. That ranger Mitchell, he's doing the same thing he did 14 years ago, steering people away from certain areas. Detective Harrison followed. Her gaze. Tom Mitchell? He's been instrumental in organizing the volunteers. Knows this forest better than anyone. That's just it, June insisted. During the original search, he had incredibly detailed knowledge about our family's routines. He knew what time we usually arrived for picnics, where the girls liked to play, which trails we favored. I thought it was odd then, but everyone said I was just traumatized, looking for someone to blame. The detective's expression remained neutral. Did he ever do anything specifically suspicious? Any inappropriate contact with your daughters? No, but June struggled to articulate the creeping dread Mitchell inspired. He was always the one to comfort me during the search, always asking about the girls' habits, their favorite games, and he was the last person to see them that day. He made his rounds through the picnic area about 20 minutes before we noticed they were gone. Mrs. Morrison, I understand your concerns, Detective Harrison said carefully. But without concrete evidence, I can't act on gut feelings. Mitchell has an impeccable record. He's helped with dozens of searches over the years. Before June could respond, A shadow fell across them. Mitchell stood there, his weathered face creased with concern. "June Morrison," he said, his voice carrying that same overly familiar tone she remembered. "I heard you were back. I'm so deeply sorry about Sophie. I want you to know I never stopped thinking about your girls. Not one day has passed that I haven't wondered." He reached out as if to touch her arm, and June instinctively stepped back. Mitchell's eyes flickered with something annoyance, hurt, before resuming their sympathetic expression. "I'd like to help however I can," he continued. "In fact, I could show you the exact spot where the girls were last seen playing. Sometimes returning to a location can trigger memories, details that might have been overlooked. I have a break in an hour if you'd like me to walk you through it." "That's kind of you," Marcus interjected, appearing at June's side. "But we're not ready for that yet." Mitchell nodded understandingly, but his gaze lingered on June. "Of course. Whenever you're ready, I'll be here. I'm always here." As he walked away, June grabbed Marcus's hand. "There's something wrong with him. I felt it then, and I feel it now." Marcus squeezed back. "I know, but the detective is right. We need evidence. For now, let's just watch. And wait." June nodded. But as she watched Mitchell return to his maps, directing more volunteers away from the northern section, with elaborate explanations about safety concerns, she couldn't shake the feeling that the answer to their daughter's disappearance had been right in front of them all along. June was refilling the coffee maker for what felt like the 100th time, when she heard a car door slam outside. Through the kitchen window, she saw her brother Daniel climbing out of his SUV, his face drawn with concern. He'd made the 6-hour drive from the city in record time. "June." Daniel pulled her into a fierce embrace the moment she opened the door. "I dropped everything as soon as I heard. I can't believe they found Sophie." "But Emma, there's still hope for Emma, right?" June nodded against his shoulder, drawing comfort from her younger brother's familiar presence. Daniel had always been protective of the girls, the fun uncle who brought too many presents and taught them card tricks during family gatherings. "The police are expanding the search," she managed. "They think whoever took them might have kept Emma." "Then we'll find her," Daniel said firmly. "Whatever it takes." Within hours, the vacation home transformed into a bustling command center. Extended family arrived in waves. Cousins June hadn't seen in years. Marcus's sister from the coast, old friends who'd helped search 14 years ago. The quiet, dusty rooms filled with voices, supplies, and an energy born of both grief and hope. June's ad coordinated food for the search volunteers, commandeering the kitchen with military efficiency. Neighbors brought casseroles and coffee urns. Someone set up a phone tree. The dining room table disappeared under maps, each section marked with grid coordinates, and assigned search teams. At the ranger station briefing that afternoon, Detective Harrison addressed the crowd of volunteers. Daniel stood near the front, listening intently as the detective explained the search parameters. "The remains were discovered here." Detective Harrison pointed to a spot on the enlarged map. "We're expanding outward in all directions, but paying special attention to areas with similar terrain, old growth trees, minimal foot traffic." Daniel raised his hand. "Can you tell us more about the metal detector discovery? What setting?" "Found the thermos?" The detective looked surprised by the technical question. The blogger's video showed he was using discrimination mode set to detect non-ferrous metals. The reading was 99. "That's extremely high." Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "Stainless steel would certainly trigger that. Do we have other detectors available? Different frequencies might pick up other metallic objects, zippers, buttons, jewelry the girls might have worn." June felt a surge of gratitude for her brother's practical approach. While others were emotional, Daniel focused on methodology, on concrete ways to help. "We have several detection units available," Detective Harrison confirmed. "Teams trained in their use will be deployed strategically. June noticed Park Ranger Mitchell watching their family group from across the room, his gaze particularly fixed on Daniel. When volunteers began signing up for search sectors, Daniel immediately moved to the clipboard for the northern quadrant. "I'll take section N7, Daniel announced, pointing to the area Mitchell had earlier declared dangerous. Mitchell quickly intervened. "That's rough terrain, not recommended for civilian searchers. Maybe you'd be better suited to an experienced hiker," Daniel cut him off. "Did mountaineering club in college. I can handle rough terrain." Mitchell's jaw tightened, but before he could object further, other volunteers had already begun signing up for adjacent sections. June watched the exchange with interest. Why was Mitchell so determined to keep people away from that area? The search began at dawn the next morning. June joined her brother's team along with Marcus and several cousins. They moved through the forest in a careful line, arm's length apart, eyes scanning the ground for any trace of evidence. 3 hours in, a volunteer named Carol called out excitedly, "I found something. Look, it's a ribbon." Everyone converged on the spot. Caught on a low branch was a small hair ribbon, faded and weathered, but still recognizably pink. Daniel pushed forward with the others, kneeling to examine it closely. "Could this be Emma's? June, do you remember if she wore hair ribbons?" June studied the scrap of fabric, her heart racing. "She did, but I can't tell if this is hers. It could have been here for years from anyone." "Still, we should bag it," Daniel said. "Every piece of evidence matters, right?" As the police photographer documented the find, June noticed Mitchell had materialized nearby, despite supposedly overseeing a different sector. He stood at the forest edge, watching their group intently. When she caught his eye, he offered that same concerned smile before melting back into the trees. "Marcus," June whispered to her husband, "Mitchell keeps showing up wherever we are. Don't you think that's strange?" But Marcus wasn't listening. He was watching Daniel, who had moved away from the group and was pacing near the forest edge, cell phone pressed to his ear. June couldn't hear the conversation, but Daniel's body language was agitated, one hand running repeatedly through his hair. After a few minutes, Daniel pocketed his phone and approached them. "Hey, I need to run back to town. Pick up some supplies for the search teams, water bottles, energy bars, first aid supplies. We're running low." "I'll come with you," Marcus offered. "It's a lot to carry alone." No, Daniel said quickly. "You should stay here with June. I'll be faster on my own. There's something I need to check on anyway. Work thing. Even with everything happening, some fires can't wait." June watched her brother hurry back toward the parking area, his urgency seeming excessive for a simple supply run. Behind her, she sensed rather than saw Mitchell observing their family drama with interest. "Did Daniel seem odd to you?" Marcus asked quietly. June wanted to say yes, but her attention was pulled back to Mitchell, who was now speaking into his radio, his eyes still tracking Daniel's retreating form. Everyone was watching everyone, she realized. Sophie's discovery had cracked open their quiet grief, and now suspicion seeped through, like water finding hidden faults in stone. June's supply list crinkled in her hand as she drove into town. The search teams were burning through water and first aid supplies faster than anyone had anticipated. She'd volunteered to make a pharmacy run, partly to help, but mostly to escape the oppressive atmosphere of the house, where every corner held memories. As she turned into the shopping center, she spotted Daniel's black SUV immediately. But instead of being parked in the abundant spaces near the store's front entrance, it sat alone in the back lot, reversed into the spot as if positioned for a quick exit. Strange. Daniel had said he was heading to his house 40 minutes away for an important work call. June pulled into a front space and sat for a moment, unease prickling at her neck. Why would Daniel lie about where he was going, and why park so oddly? She grabbed her purse, deciding she'd pop in and see if he needed anything for the search efforts. The automatic doors whooshed open, releasing a blast of air conditioning. June moved through the aisles, expecting to find Daniel in the snack section loading up on energy bars. Instead, she spotted him at the pharmacy counter in the back, an overflowing basket at his feet. She paused behind an end-cap display of vitamins, watching. Daniel was unloading his basket onto the counter. Bulk packages of feminine hygiene products, several boxes of them, industrial-sized bottles of antiseptic, gauze, bandages, medical tape, cases of protein bars, and enough bottled water to stock a bunker. That's quite a haul, the pharmacist commented as she began scanning. This your third big purchase this week, isn't it? You stocking a shelter or something? Daniel's laugh came out forced. Something like that. Just, hurricane season coming up. Like to be prepared. Hurricane season in the mountains? The pharmacist raised an eyebrow but continued scanning. June stepped back further into the aisle. Why would Daniel need so many feminine hygiene products? He lived alone, had been single since his divorce 5 years ago, and this was his third large purchase. Will that be all? The pharmacist asked. That's $487.23. Daniel fumbled for his wallet, and that's when he spotted June. His face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Surprise, alarm, then a forced smile. June, what are you doing here? She stepped out from behind the display. Getting supplies for the search teams. I saw your car and thought I'd see if you needed anything. Her eyes moved to the bags the pharmacist was filling. That's a lot of supplies. Oh, this? Daniel's face flushed red. I'm, donating to a women's shelter. They sent out a request for supplies. You know me, always trying to help. The lie was so obvious it hung in the air between them. June had never known Daniel to volunteer for anything, and his nervous energy made her skin crawl. I really need to get going, Daniel said quickly, shoving his credit card at the pharmacist. That work call, can't keep the client waiting. He grabbed the bags hastily, juggling them awkwardly as he rushed toward the exit. June followed, watching him hurry to his SUV. He fumbled with his keys, dropping one of the bags. As he bent to retrieve it, the automatic hatch opened, and June glimpsed the cargo area, new padlocks still in their packaging, a coil of yellow rope, more cases of water. Daniel threw the bags in quickly and slammed the hatch, but not before June saw everything. He climbed into the driver's seat without another word, peeling out of the parking lot fast enough to leave tire marks. That evening, June couldn't concentrate on anything. She picked at the casserole someone had brought, pushing it around her plate as Marcus talked about the day's search progress. Daniel was acting so strange today, she finally interrupted. At the pharmacy, he bought all these supplies, feminine products, medical supplies, enough food and water for months. And there were padlocks in his car, rope. Marcus set down his fork. Maybe he's seeing someone he hasn't told us about. You know how private Daniel can be about his relationships. Marcus, he was buying bulk feminine hygiene products, cases of them, and the pharmacist said it was his third big purchase this week. Who needs that much? And he keeps asking about police procedures, June continued. Today he wanted to know about evidence collection, chain of custody. Yesterday, it was about how long DNA lasts in different conditions. Why would he need to know that? Marcus reached for her hand. You're exhausted. We all are. Daniel's just trying to help. In his own way. Maybe over-preparing because he feels helpless like we all do. June wanted to believe him, but as she lay in bed that night, she couldn't stop thinking about the supplies in Daniel's car, his guilty face when she'd caught him at the pharmacy, the way he'd fled like a man with secrets to hide. Everyone was watching Park Ranger Mitchell. But what if they were looking in the wrong direction? June stared at the ceiling, watching shadows from the pine trees outside dance across the old wooden beams. Beside her, Marcus's breathing was deep and even, but sleep eluded her completely. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Daniel's guilty face at the pharmacy, the padlocks in his car, the way he'd fled like a criminal caught in the act. At 3 a.m., she couldn't stand it anymore. She shook Marcus's shoulder gently. "Marcus, wake up, please. I need to talk to you." He stirred, groggy. "What's wrong?" "Is it about the search?" "It's about Daniel." The words tumbled out in the darkness. "I can't stop thinking about his behavior, the pharmacy supplies, the way he keeps disappearing at scheduled times, his nervous energy. Something's not right." Marcus sat up, rubbing his eyes. "June, he's your brother. You've known him all your life." "That's just it." June switched on the bedside lamp and pulled out her phone. "Earlier, I was looking through old photos on my cloud storage, trying to find more pictures of the girls for the police. Look at this." She showed him photo after photo. Daniel at the vacation home for the 4th of July. Daniel at their Easter egg hunt. Daniel appearing in the background of pictures she didn't even remember him being present for. "He visited way more often than I remembered," June said. "Sometimes he'd just show up, no invitation needed. He knew our routines when we'd be here, where the girls like to play." "June." Marcus's voice carried a warning. "I know how it sounds." She pressed her palms against her eyes. "But remember what Detective Harrison said during the original investigation. It's often the most unexpected person, the one you'd never suspect. This is Daniel we're talking about. He adored the girls." Maybe too much. The words felt like poison on her tongue. Today he asked specifically about whether police dogs would be used in tomorrow's search. Said he was allergic, but Marcus, Daniel's never been allergic to dogs. Remember, he had that German shepherd for years. They sat in silence for several minutes, the weight of suspicion settling between them like a third presence in the room. Even if something's off," Marcus said carefully, "we can't just accuse him based on weird shopping habits and nervous energy. Everyone's acting strange right now. Look at Mitchell. You're convinced he's involved, too." "What if we just talk to him?" June suggested. "Tomorrow morning, we'll go to his house, clear the air. If there are reasonable explanations for everything, then we'll know. We can't harbor these suspicions behind his back." Marcus nodded slowly. "You're right. Better to address it directly. But June, we have to be careful how we approach this. If we're wrong, we'll destroy my relationship with my brother." "I know," June's voice was barely a whisper. "But if we're right and we do nothing." They agreed to visit Daniel first thing in the morning, before the search resumed. June finally dozed off around 5 a.m., her dreams filled with metal detectors screaming numbers, and Daniel's SUV driving away into darkness. She woke to Marcus's phone ringing insistently. Sunlight streamed through the windows. They'd overslept. "Detective Harrison?" Marcus answered, his voice thick with sleep. "Yes, this is Marcus Morrison." June watched her husband's face change as he listened, becoming alert and concerned. "Right now? But we were about to—" He paused, listening. "No, I understand. Evidence about my work associates? I don't understand what that could mean." June sat up, mouthing, "What's happening?" Marcus covered the phone. "They need me at the station immediately. Something about new evidence that might connect to people from my office 14 years ago." "Both of us?" "No, he specifically asked for me to come alone. Says it's sensitive information." Marcus was already pulling on clothes. "I'm sorry. I know we were going to talk to Daniel." "Go," June said, though unease twisted in her stomach. "This could be important." Marcus kissed her forehead. "I'll be back as quick as I can. Maybe wait for me before going to Daniel's." But as June heard the car pull away, she knew she couldn't wait. The questions were eating her alive. She'd go to Daniel's house just to talk. What harm could there be in talking to her own brother? She dressed quickly, trying to ignore the voice in her head that whispered warnings. Daniel was family. There had to be innocent explanations for everything. There had to be. June pulled into Daniel's driveway, her hands trembling slightly on the steering wheel. His house sat on 5 acres of wooded property their father had left him, far enough from neighbors that privacy was absolute. She had always thought it strange that Daniel chose such isolation after his divorce. But now the seclusion felt ominous. Daniel answered the door, still in his pajamas, clearly surprised. "June, what are you doing here so early?" "We need to talk," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "About yesterday, about everything." His expression shifted to concern. "Of course. Come in, I'll make tea." She followed him through the familiar rooms. Photos of family gatherings lining the hallway. There she was with baby Emma. There were the girls with Daniel at Christmas. Normal family photos that now felt tainted by her suspicions. In the kitchen, Daniel filled the kettle, his movements precise and controlled. "I know I've been acting strangely," he said without turning around. "This whole situation with Sophie, the search for Emma, it's bringing up a lot of emotions." June made a non-committal sound, her eyes scanning the kitchen. That's when she saw them. Receipts scattered on the counter near his laptop. Industrial padlocks from a hardware store, multiple packages, soundproofing foam panels. Her stomach dropped as she read the itemized list. Why would anyone need soundproofing materials? Another receipt caught her eye. Polytarp, heavy-duty sheeting. Industrial bleach. Lye. Through the kitchen window, something else drew her attention. In the far corner of the property, partially hidden by overgrown bushes, was the old storm bunker. She'd forgotten it existed. Their father had built it during the Cold War paranoia of the 1960s. A reinforced concrete structure sunk into the earth. Daniel had claimed he'd sealed it years ago, called it a hazard, but the vegetation around the entrance had been recently cleared. Finding anything interesting? June spun around. Daniel stood directly behind her, no longer by the stove. His face had changed, the concerned brother mask slipping to reveal something cold and unfamiliar. "I was just..." June gestured weakly at the receipts. "These were sitting here. You always were too nosy." His hand moved casually to the knife block on the counter. "Always poking around where you shouldn't. Just like that day at the picnic." "What?" June's mouth went dry. "You should have been watching them." His fingers wrapped around the handle of a large kitchen knife. "Instead, you were so focused on cleaning up, making everything perfect." Back and forth to the car, leaving them alone. "Daniel, what are you saying?" "They were so beautiful, June, so perfect and innocent. I watched them grow every visit, every family gathering. Emma with those big brown eyes, Sophie so smart and spirited." His voice had taken on a dreamy quality that made her skin crawl. "They were meant to be preserved like that, protected, kept safe from the ugly world." June edged toward the door. "I need to call Marcus." Daniel moved faster than she expected, blocking her path. The knife glinted in his hand. "You're not going anywhere. You always ruin everything. Always have to meddle. Daniel, please, they were mine." He exploded, spittle flying from his lips. "I love them more than you ever could. You and Marcus, so careless with such precious gifts. That day at the picnic, when I saw them alone, it was like fate. The perfect moment I'd been waiting for." June's legs threatened to buckle. "You took them. You took my babies. I saved them." His face twisted with self-righteous fury. Saved them from growing up in this filthy world, from becoming disappointed and bitter like everyone else. He grabbed her arm with his free hand, the knife pressing against her ribs. "Come on, since you're so curious about my purchases, let me show you what they're for." He forced her out the back door and across the yard toward the bunker. June's mind raced, looking for escape, but Daniel kept the knife pressed firmly against her side. 14 years I kept her perfect," he rambled as they walked. "My little Emma. Sophie was too difficult, too strong-willed, always crying for you. But Emma was young enough to forget, to learn that Uncle Danny was her whole world now. He fumbled with a heavy padlock on the bunker door, then shoved it open. Concrete steps led down into darkness. The smell of damp earth and something else, human occupation, wafted up. "Move," he ordered, forcing her down the steps. Battery-powered LED strips provided dim illumination. As June's eyes adjusted, the horror of what she was seeing struck her like a physical blow. The space had been converted into a living area, if it could be called living. A chemical toilet in one corner, stacks of canned goods and water cases. Along one wall, a small bed with leather restraints attached to the frame. And in the far corner, huddled on a pile of blankets, was a young woman. Uncle Danny? The voice was high, childlike, despite coming from an 18-year-old body. "Who is she? I don't like strangers." June's knees gave out. Even after 14 years, even with hollow cheeks and tangled hair, she knew that face. "Emma," she whispered. Emma cocked her head, confused. "How does she know my name, Uncle Danny? You said no one else knows about me. You said I'm your secret special girl." The bunker door slammed shut above them. Daniel's footsteps were heavy on the stairs as he descended with the knife, still in hand. The bunker door slammed shut with a metallic clang that reverberated through June's bones. She heard the padlock click into place, then Daniel's footsteps pacing on the ground above, back and forth, like a caged animal. His muffled voice drifted down, words indistinct, but tone agitated, arguing with himself. June turned to her daughter, her baby girl, now a young woman she barely recognized. Emma had pressed herself deeper into the corner, arms wrapped around her knees, making herself as small as possible. "Emma, sweetheart," June said softly, inching closer. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. Uncle Danny doesn't. Like when I talk to strangers," Emma whispered, her voice high and sing-song, frozen in childhood. "I'm supposed to stay in my corner unless he says different. Are you the police?" Emma continued. "Uncle Danny says the police want to take me away and hurt me." June's heart shattered. "No, baby, I'm not the police. I'm—" She couldn't say it. How could she explain she was the mother Emma had been trained to forget? She reached out slowly, but Emma flinched violently, pressing against the concrete wall. "No touching. Uncle Danny says no one else can touch me, only Uncle Danny. I'm his special girl." The programmed responses, the childlike speech patterns from an 18-year-old mouth, it was grotesque. June could see the years of conditioning. In every gesture, every word. Her little girl had been systematically broken and rebuilt into Daniel's twisted fantasy. Above them, the pacing stopped. June heard the padlock rattle, then the door creaked open. Sunlight flooded down the stairs, silhouetting Daniel's form. He descended slowly, and June's blood froze when she saw what he carried, a blue polytarp, the kind used at construction sites, and a coil of rope. His movements were resigned now, methodical. "Time to go, Emma," he said, his voice eerily calm. "We're going to take a trip to the forest." "The forest?" Emma perked up slightly. "Are we going to see the birds?" "You promised we could see birds someday." "That's right." Daniel moved toward her, and June saw the terrible purpose in his eyes. "But first, you need to take your medicine, the special sleepy medicine." "No," June threw herself between them. "You're not touching her." Daniel's face contorted with rage. "She's too old now, don't you understand? She aged out. I kept her as long as I could, but look at her. She's not a little girl anymore. She's ruined." He grabbed Emma's arm roughly, yanking her to her feet. Emma whimpered but didn't resist, trained to comply. "I should have gotten rid of her years ago," Daniel continued, dragging Emma toward the stairs, "when she started developing. But I was weak. I kept thinking I could preserve something of what she was." "Daniel, please," June begged, following them. "She's your niece. You loved her. I did love her. That's why she has to go now, while there's still something pure left. His grip on Emma tightened. Sophie understood too much. Always crying, always fighting. I had to silence her after just a few months, but I was smart about it. He paused on the stairs, a horrible pride creeping into his voice. I buried her near the vacation home on purpose, far enough from here that no one would connect it to me, but close enough that when she was eventually found, everyone would assume both girls died together. The perfect misdirection. It bought me 14 more years with Emma. My husband will be back any moment, June said desperately. The police will be looking for me. Daniel laughed, a bitter sound. Marcus, at the police station? That'll take hours. All that paperwork, all those questions about his supposed work connections. Amazing what an anonymous tip can do. Plenty of time to drive Emma to the forest, bury her properly, then come back and deal with you. He continued up the stairs, dragging the confused Emma, who kept asking about the birds they were going to see. June felt a fury building inside her unlike anything she'd ever experienced. Not her baby. Not again. As Daniel reached the top of the stairs, struggling to manage Emma and the tarp, June launched herself at him with primal ferocity. She slammed into his back, causing him to stumble forward. His grip on Emma loosened, and more importantly, the hunting knife he'd tucked in his belt clattered to the concrete floor. June dove for it as Daniel tried to regain his balance. Her fingers closed around the handle just as he realized what had happened. You bitch! He lunged for her, but June was already moving, adrenaline giving her speed she didn't know she possessed. She burst up the stairs and into the house, Daniel's footsteps pounding behind her. The landline phone sat on the kitchen counter. She grabbed it, fingers flying over the keypad. 911, what's your emergency? This is June Morrison. I'm at 445 Woodside Drive. My daughter Emma is here, the missing girl from 14 years ago. My brother Daniel Morrison kidnapped her. He's the kidnapper. Send police now. Daniel skidded to a stop in the kitchen doorway, his face cycling through emotions as he realized she'd already connected to emergency services. The dispatcher was asking questions, but June just kept screaming the address and that her kidnapped daughter was in the bunker. For a moment, Daniel stood frozen. Then his survival instinct kicked in. He turned and ran, grabbing his car keys from the hook by the door. June heard his SUV engine roar to life, tires spraying gravel as he peeled out of the driveway. He's fleeing, June told the dispatcher. Black SUV, license plate, but she couldn't remember it. My daughter's in the bunker behind the house. She's alive. Please hurry. Dropping the phone, June ran back to the bunker. Emma hadn't moved from the stairs, standing confused where Daniel had left her. Where did Uncle Danny go? She asked plaintively. He said we were going to see birds. June gathered her daughter in her arms, feeling how thin she was beneath the oversized clothes. Emma stood rigid, uncomfortable with the contact, but not fighting it. It's okay, June whispered over and over. You're safe now. You're safe. The sirens came quickly, growing louder until they filled the air. Police cars poured into the driveway, officers emerging with weapons drawn, until June called out that Daniel had fled. She helped Emma up the stairs and into the daylight. Her daughter raised a pale hand to shield her eyes, squinting in the brightness she rarely saw. Ma'am, I'm Detective Harrison. The detective approached carefully, taking in the scene. Is this Emma? When is Uncle Danny coming? Back? Emma asked him. He said we were going somewhere. I don't like when plans change. Detective Harrison's face went professionally blank, but June saw the horror in his eyes. He called for ambulances while more officers arrived. 2 descended into the bunker, and June heard one of them curse violently. The younger officer emerged moments later, his face green, stumbling to the bushes to be sick. Detective Harrison continued documenting the scene. His movements grim and methodical, the restraints on the bed, the scratch marks on the concrete walls, some old, some fresh. The calendar where Daniel had marked off days with notes June couldn't bring herself to read. When the paramedics arrived, they approached Emma slowly, speaking in calm voices. She kept asking for Uncle Danny, wondering if he was angry with her, if she'd done something wrong. "You didn't do anything wrong," one paramedic assured her while checking her vitals. "You've been very brave." "Uncle Danny says I'm brave when I take my medicine without crying," Emma replied. "Am I going to take medicine now?" That's when Marcus's car screeched into the driveway. He jumped out, wild-eyed, having heard something on the police scanner. When he saw Emma, alive, standing, but so changed, he broke down completely. "Emma," he sobbed. "Oh God, Emma." Emma tilted her head at him. "Who is that man? Why is he crying?" "Uncle Danny doesn't like crying. He says it's ugly." The paramedics gently guided both June and Emma toward the ambulance, explaining they needed to go to the hospital for examination. Emma went willingly, still asking when Uncle Danny would come back, if he'd be at the hospital, if she'd been a good girl. As the ambulance doors closed, June held her daughter's hand, her living, breathing daughter, who didn't know her at all. The emergency room buzzed with controlled chaos as June was wheeled in alongside Emma. Nurses descended immediately, voices calm but urgent. They separated them, June to one treatment bay for her bruises and shock, Emma to a secure psychiatric room where specialists waited. "I need to stay with her," June protested as they applied blood pressure cuffs and checked her injuries. "Ma'am, your daughter needs specialized care right now," the nurse explained gently. "Dr. Patel is our best trauma psychologist." She helped Emma feel safe. Through the doorway, June could hear Emma's voice, high and confused. "Where's Uncle Danny? He doesn't like hospitals. He says doctors want to steal our secrets." Dr. Patel's response was too quiet to hear, but her tone was soothing, measured. June closed her eyes, gripping the bed rails as the doctor examined. The bruises on her arms where Daniel had grabbed her. 2 hours passed in a blur of examinations, 4 fluids, and police officers coming and going with updates. Then Detective Harrison appeared, his face grim but satisfied. "We got him," he said simply. "State troopers picked up Daniel at a rest stop near the state line. He's in custody." June sagged with relief. "Is he talking?" "He's doing more than talking. He's given a full confession." Harrison pulled up a chair. "He's trying to avoid the death penalty, trading information for life without parole." The detective opened his notebook, and June steeled herself for what was coming. Daniel admitted to struggling with an escalating pornography addiction, specifically content involving young girls. He says the visit to the vacation home 14 years ago wasn't planned. He was driving through the area and decided to stop by spontaneously. June's stomach churned. All those unplanned visits over the years suddenly took on a sinister cast. "He saw the girls playing alone while you and your husband were cleaning up." His exact words were that it felt like destiny. He approached them, saying you needed them urgently, that you'd sent Uncle Danny to get them, promised them ice cream if they came quickly and quietly. "They trusted him," June whispered. "He was their uncle." "Of course, they went with him." Harrison nodded grimly. "He took them straight to the bunker. Had apparently been preparing it for months, though he claims he never planned to actually take anyone. Said it was just a fantasy until that moment." Through the door, June could hear Emma talking to Dr. Patel. "Sometimes I remember a lady who sang songs, but Uncle Danny says that's just dreams. Bad dreams that will go away if I'm good." Both girls were in the bunker initially. Harrison continued. "But when we announced we'd be searching all family properties, Daniel panicked. He rented a storage unit in Millerville using cash and a fake name. Moved the girls there for 3 days until his property was cleared." Storage unit? June felt sick. "My babies were in a storage unit?" Climate controlled, Harrison said bitterly, like it somehow made it better. The officers who searched his property barely glanced at the bunker. It had an old padlock on it, looked abandoned. They never suspected. Dr. Patel emerged from Emma's room, approaching them with careful steps. Mrs. Morrison, Emma is stable, but she's deeply traumatized. She's showing signs of Stockholm Syndrome, severe conditioning. She keeps asking for Daniel, referring to him as her protector. Does she remember anything about before? June asked, fragments. When I mentioned certain words, Mama, Sophie, home, she showed physiological responses, increased. Heart rate, pupil dilation. The memories are there, but they're buried under 14 years of programming. She mentioned a song, a lullaby. Said she hears it sometimes, but Uncle Danny tells her it's not real. Detective Harrison cleared his throat. There's more about Sophie. Daniel says she never adjusted like Emma did. Kept trying to escape, constantly asked for you. After about 4 months, when the intensive searches had died down, she managed to break the lock on the bunker while he was at work. She made it to the forest before he caught her. June covered her mouth, imagining her brave 7-year-old running desperately through the trees. He says he panicked, hit her with a rock, claimed it was an accident. Harrison shrugged. He buried her near the vacation home deliberately. Knew the area had high iron content in the soil that would trigger metal detectors eventually. Included her thermos to ensure identification when she was found. He planned for her to be found. He figured it would close the case. Everyone would assume both girls died together. Stop looking for Emma. He called it insurance. A commotion in the hallway drew their attention. Marcus had arrived, still in the clothes he'd worn to the police station, his face haggard. When he saw June, he rushed to her. Is it true, Daniel? How could... God, June, my own brother-in-law. Detective. Harrison stood. I'll give you folks some privacy, but Mrs. Morrison, there's one more thing. We found supplies in Daniel's car tarps, shovels, lye. Based on his purchases and movements, we believe he was planning to kill Emma tonight. You saved her life by showing up when you did. The weight of that settled over them as the detective left. Their daughter had been hours from death. She aged out, June said numbly. That's what he said. She aged out of his attraction. Dr. Patel returned. Would you like to see Emma now? We've sedated her lightly. She was becoming agitated, but she's awake. They followed her to Emma's room. Their daughter lay in the hospital bed, looking so small despite her 18 years. Her eyes tracked their movement but showed no recognition. Emma, June said softly. It's Mom and Dad. Emma's brow furrowed. I don't have those. Uncle Danny says I'm special because I only need him. June sat carefully on the bed's edge, fighting tears. She began to hum softly the lullaby she'd sung every night when Emma was small, the one about mockingbirds and diamond rings. Emma's eyes widened slightly. Her breathing changed. That song, she whispered. I know that song, but it makes Uncle Danny angry when I hum it. June kept humming, reaching slowly for Emma's hand. Her daughter didn't pull away, but didn't grasp back either. Marcus stood on the other side of the bed, tears streaming down his face. The lady in my dream sings that song, Emma said, her voice becoming drowsy from the sedation. The pretty lady who smells like flowers, but she's not real. Uncle. Danny says she's not real. She's real, baby, June whispered. I'm real. Emma's eyes started to drift closed, but June felt it, the slightest squeeze of her fingers. Just a reflex, maybe, or muscle memory from a time before the bunker, but it was something. June kept humming the lullaby, the same one from 14 years of empty nights. While machines beeped softly around them, Emma's breathing evened out, and every few minutes, when June reached the chorus, she felt that tiny squeeze again. Her daughter was in there somewhere, buried under years of trauma and conditioning. It would take time, maybe years, to find her again. But she was alive. After 14 years of not knowing, of imagining the worst, Emma was alive and lying in a hospital bed, occasionally squeezing her mother's hand to the rhythm of a half-remembered song. Outside the room, Detective Harrison was coordinating with other officers, building an airtight case against Daniel. Somewhere in a county jail, her brother sat in a cell, his 6 secrets finally exposed. And somewhere in a forest, searchers were still combing the ground, making sure there were no other secrets buried in the earth. But in this moment, in this hospital room, June held her daughter's hand and sang softly while Marcus wept, and Emma drifted between sleep and waking, occasionally responding to her mother's voice with the slightest pressure of her fingers against June's palm.